may I call you Arn?
You better.
Okay. Well, I didn't know. Oh, yes. Thank you. I, along with everybody else, you and Tully, you can ask any of the other top guys. Like, you two are my absolute favorites. I have your Brainbuster shirts. I have your action figures, everything. Like, you're my absolute favorite.
Thank you.
What I want to know, I love your show. I love the new format. I could listen to you literally all day, talk about the road stories and just things that happen behind the scenes but what I want to know is, when are you going to write a book?
I think I had one book that was like the first part of my career, but it was not like a autobiography of everything. And I think my son, when he gets a couple of years in the business and makes more of an impact, which I know he's going to do, he has a lot of aptitude and a great attitude for this business. I think you guys are going to be proud of him. Once he has established himself and he is in the mix, then I think I will have a more interesting book. I've had some offers. Obviously, I have had some offers. But I want to include him in there because it's the third chapter of my life. I was a wrestler. Then I was a producer for 20 something years, producing television and an agent. And now I'm going back to this coaching role and helping him break in the business, which I think is the third chapter. And once that one doesn't have to be complete, but let it be in full swing, I think would make for a much better read.
Sure. Well, I would love for you to do it on Audible too, so we can listen to you tell those stories, because I think that's just the best part. I'm really looking forward to, fingers crossed, meeting you at Top Guy Weekend, because I'm definitely coming. And again, just listening. I just love listening to those stories. And I'm an 80s kind of child, I guess. And so I started off listening to Memphis, and it's just grown since then. And so, like I said, I just love listening to the stories of the road and the backstage and different things like that. It's just the thing that makes me it's my favorite thing about being a wrestling fan. It's just to listen to all those stories and traveling that you all do. And that's why I love your show. It's just, like I said, it's absolutely one of my favorites.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. It's, you picking those years, I've said this many times, 85 through 89 were the golden years of this industry. And anybody that hasn't went back and studied those years, and the different companies and, just the different product that it was a wrestling product. It wasn't a sports entertainment product. And the Jim Crockett years, where if you look, go back and look at it with a different eye, and you just see all those guys were tremendous performers, but every one of them were different. Now we weren't, and that's what, these kids today, they ask me, give me some words of advice. And I just say, no matter what you do, whether it's your costuming, your look, your promo, your work, the things you do in the ring, be different. Because if you go back from the Crockett years and you pick out any 5 performers, it doesn't matter who it was, pick out any 5 and watch 3 of their matches, and the things you'll walk away from is they could all perform, they could all tell a story, and they were all different. No 2 guys work the same. So we weren't a lot smarter than these guys today, and we're certainly not better athletes or better performers, but we dedicated ourselves to being different. And whatever you did, another guy didn't step on. So every match was different. Would you agree?
Yes, very much so. And I feel sorry, I guess, in some ways, for maybe some of the newer wrestling fans that don't realize that there is such education that you and some of the more seasoned wrestlers, for, like you said, from the 70s and 80s, and even Jim Cornette telling stories about how things were. They're not their stars, their favorite stars are not going to be able to give them those stories, like we get. And so I just, I really encourage people to always listen, like you said, go back to the 70s, 80s, pick you a territory. Like if you really want to learn some things about wrestling, follow a territory, and that will tell you really what was going on and what is so wonderful about the shows that we're watching now.
Well said. I couldn't say it any better.
Oh, well, thank you. So you are coming to Top Guy Weekend, correct?
That's in Chicago?
Yes, sir.
I sure will. I'll be there. So you make sure you come up and introduce yourself. If you
I will.
If you got to mow a couple people down to get there, go ahead. I'll bail you out.
Well, thank you. I'll tell you what, there are some great Top Guys. I'm pretty sure they're going to make sure that everybody's out of my way because they know how I feel about you and Tully.
Okay. Well, I look forward to it.
Wonderful. And Christy, I want to tell you something. You are a wonderful addition to Ad Free Shows. The two Zooms that I've been on with you, they have been very well done. And so I really do appreciate you coming on board and the interviews that you do. I think you do a wonderful job.
Oh, well, thank you, Amy. I'm really grateful for that. Wow. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. So now I'm going to get, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I was just going to say, I concur. Christy, yes. You are a welcome addition.
She is. And so now I'm going to go get dinner home to my family as I've been sitting here for 20 minutes. Pulled over. I've been pulled over. Well, you know what? I was supposed to be home, but work, I had to stay longer for work. My husband already knew, so he's not expecting me. He knows that if I got to be able to do this on my phone, that I would probably pull over. And so he's not expecting his meal anytime soon. So he knows.
And if he tells the truth, he would say, I want you to pull over and be safe.
Exactly. Definitely. And so, and when I come in and I got to ask a question, he's going to understand why I should have been home 15 minutes ago and I wasn't. So you all have a good night. Yes,
all right,
thank you.
All
Bon
right.
appetit.
Bye-bye.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, go for it.
Mr. Anderson, how you doing, sir?
Very good. You?
Not too bad. We met a couple of years ago at StarCast, and I asked you how long it took for you to write your book, and I believe you said it was only a month.
I think so.
How did that come together, getting that on the book?
Well, it was a friend of mine, Bob Blackburn, who had been in the business for a minute, but then he was a financial advisor, and he was my financial advisor, and we became good friends. And he said, there's a book out there, and you should write it because I think people would read it. And he got it published, and it was on a very small scale, and we pretty much sold the rights to Amazon. And they've been carrying that book for, God, I don't know, ever since it came out. What's that? Probably 24, 25 years or something. But I just tried to make it, part wrestling stories. And there's a section in there, favorite hotels and restaurants and favorite music and all that. And I just wanted to make it a light read, just something that you could read in a couple of settings, no big deal. And, not get too heavy into anything, and just make it almost like, getting a double thick USA paper and reading it. You get everything and, all the different, topics of the day. So that's what it was. And it's still around.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty cool that you got to do that because around that same time, I believe Goldberg and DDP had their books.
I think mine was before that, and it was never going to encroach on those guys, totally separate. Obviously they have different stories. Mine was a more diverse story, I think. So, I don't know if you got a chance to read it or what what you thought of it, or?
You actually signed it for me for WrestleMania 34.
Okay. What did you think?
Well, I get, because you come from that generation, so I understand you want to protect the business and you don't want to throw people under the bus. You have a very long career, so
It's okay.
for that kind of.
You can say it. You were probably, you were expecting to really get a look behind the curtain and to get what we get today. But you have to remember, guys from my era, you would have been blackballed out of the business if you would have done that when I first started. Now it evolved to Vince McMahon telling everybody every chance he got that it was just entertainment.
Right.
I was still one of the guys that came from that era, that you protected the business, because if the house went down, guess what? You couldn't make your house note, couldn't pay your bills. Unless you drew money and the company made money, you weren't going to get paid. So it came from a different era, and I wrote it kayfabe. It was intended to be kayfabe, because even though a lot of people were going on media shows and everything and going, hey, it's sports entertainment, I wasn't doing it, and couldn't be held responsible for it. And that's the way I felt at the time. I've certainly loosened up with the podcast, because I was troubling with letting everybody in. And this may help you, and this is the only way I can explain this, my feelings about the business. If I took my wife and two boys when they were younger and we went to Vegas, and let's just say I took them to David Copperfield, and we sat there for 2 hours and we paid a handsome chunk of money, and we saw all these amazing things that we couldn't figure out, how does he do that? The magic is what made me feel good about spending $80 per ticket, which is a lot of money at my house. But I'm watching all these things happen, and the show is just like, man, how does that happen? And you get right to the very end, to the part to where the guy flies around the arena, and we're sitting there going, Jesus Christ, I don't see a wire anywhere. If some guy on the stage flipped on all the house lights and went, oh, don't worry about it, guys, now you can see the wire. It's all just a magic act. Wouldn't you feel pretty shitty about sitting there for however many hours and spending however many bucks? You wouldn't feel as good about it. I wouldn't. So I was not going to give away the magic, because I thought it hurt the fans. It did not benefit the fans. It made a less good feeling, I think, about the business. Does that make any kind of sense to you?
Oh yeah, that's a great analogy.
It's just mine now. It's the way I felt about it. I wasn't doing it because I thought every fan thought it was 100% real. That was never my intention. I just didn't want to give away the magic and make it less of a viewing experience for you.
All right. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to answer that.
You betcha.
Thank you so much. And we have one last question, and it's coming from Jeff.